Welcome to The Lost Signals Discusses Film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzur-Amosi Thurlow scale,
or MOTS,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode.
Welcome back, dudes, to The Lost Signals Discusses Film and Television. And I am your most excellent host, Scott S. Thurlow, Esquire, here with Jonathan Ian Manzer.
I guess Socrates.
And Stephen Amosi.
Party on, dudes.
And Chris Morgan.
B7.
And how's it going? Yes, Beethoven. Dennis Frood is also here in the house. But yeah, so as you may have gathered, we are doing the third movie in the Bill and Ted trilogy now that just came out. Bill and Ted Face the Music. And I don't really have a log line, really. I'm just going to tell you about the plot because it essentially sort of mixes elements and continues the story, what was there to set up in the first two. Bill and Ted have not written the song that unites humanity in peace, and they're like middle-aged with their daughters from the princesses from the previous film, and basically sort of realize they have to write this song and use the time travel that they've always done to attempt pretty much do at the end, while having little side tangents, little side adventures, each of which, like I said, is kind of a reference or tangential thing, callback to events from the previous two. So that's pretty much the plot. Like, there's not much to it. Like, it's going to sound like kind of that kind of insult, but it's basically what you expect from a Bill and Ted movie now 30, 25 years removed. So given all that, I'm looking at personally a solid 2. And I will admit I have a bit of a bias and a nostalgia factor for this film and franchise. Yes, I grew up on it, etc. So I had a good time with it, but for what plot there is, I think 2 is like the maximum you can go, and I could see maybe you guys giving it a 1. So with that, what do you think?
I think I'm probably going to give this a 2. I really did enjoy there's the building off of the previous 2 movies that, basically most sequels in the comedy genre do. But I think it did an interesting job of building in this new part of them, like looking forward through their lives and like seeing what they become based on what has happened in the past. It's nothing super deep, not that Bill and Ted has ever been that thing, but what it is and what I like about it, and maybe this is partially themes, but like I love the hopefulness of this entire series, and I think that it does right by the rest of the series in terms of that. There's this like almost dumb optimism that runs throughout the entire Bill and Ted series that is definitely continued here, and I thought they did a really good job with that. In terms of the plot, it was fairly complex, and I think it handled it fairly well. Like there was a lot of shit going on in this silly ass story that they had to handle, going back and forth between their story, their daughter's story, and kind of on a ticking clock, a la like High Noon or whatever.
Clock's always going in San Dimas.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, it doesn't make sense when you can time travel, but it doesn't have to. Like, it's not supposed to in any way. None of the other 2 movies made any sense either, and they worked as well or better than I think this one did. So I'm not worried too much about that. I think that it did a pretty solid job. I'm going to give it a solid 2.
So I do have a log line for this. Bill and Ted 3, The Quest for More Money. Although I'm not, it's not that cynical. The Quest for More Nostalgia, perhaps. My biggest problem with this film is, I'm not a huge fan of the original Bill and Ted. In fact, I don't know which one's which. But I have seen both of the original 2. I like the second one better. And I felt that this hit all of the beats from the first movie, or the best of the first movie, the best of the second movie, combined it into one film. I don't think anything new was explored here. They had the Rufus character. They had them dealing with themselves through that history. They had the ticking time.
Evil robot, even.
Thing. Yeah, they brought back death. There was nothing original about this work, and yes, perhaps it's trying to capture a moment in time, but it's a moment in time that I didn't. I experienced, but it wasn't memorable to me, and for I don't know if reductive is the right term to call this, but it just was filtered out the original two movies and kind of almost a clip show of this. So I don't know. I didn't particularly enjoy the film, so I might be on a 1 or a 2. Yeah, go on, Chris.
Okay, I'm definitely giving it a 1. And here's why. I loved Bill and Ted, the first one, and I wasn't. I only saw the second one once, and I wasn't too impressed with it. Never had the desire to see it again. Then I saw this the other night, and I thought, at least Bill and Ted 2. Now I want to see Bogus Journey again because at least it did something different. As Ian said, this is a lot more the same, but less of the same. Because in the original Bill and Ted, when they did time travel, you got to know the people they picked up. You got to know Freud, or you got to know Mozart. There was
Socrates.
Hey, let's go get Jimi Hendrix. He won't talk to us. Let's go get Louis Armstrong. I mean, there was so much they're trying to pack into 90 minutes. They really just cut out a lot of character development. Actually, and some of the line delivery, it felt like I was being talked at. I mean, it's the film has a lot of heart, and I'll give it that because you could tell it was a passion project. And you know that you could feel the love for this. I'm just saying that I wish it were successful, but to me it wasn't. So I'm solidly sticking with the 1.
That's completely fair. So I guess the reason I'm going to stay with the 2, but I see your 1s for sure, is that, as you guys said, that, yeah, it takes some of the best parts, maybe not like doing anything all that original, but a little bit from Excellent Adventure, a little bit from Bogus Journey, equaling a 2 in my mind. So that's basically my reasoning. But I certainly don't begrudge you the 1s, and I see your points.
I mean, I don't know if I would. I don't know how much I would take off for the absence of character development. I think you're right, Chris, that the secondary characters are left out of this in order to develop the main characters a bit. And you do get more development of Bill and Ted in this movie through them meeting their older selves and things like that. And
a series of what if. It's just like we're dealing with the timeline, so there's always that what if factor. We can explore different, timelines and so forth. I mean, I don't really see that as development so much.
Also, it negates any of the character growth in the first 2 films because they're just replaying all of the same beats of the originals, or at least the first one from what I remember.
I don't know what character growth you're talking about necessarily.
No,
I mean, there's still these characters at the end of both of the first 2 movies, right?
There's still the same characters at the end of the third one as well. Like, it's all about this quest for the song. And they finally reach it, I suppose.
Well, they don't reach it. They don't reach it. They reach the realization that they have to pass the torch down to their daughters, which, I think is the whole thing is like they have to realize that their family is important to them, perhaps even more so than getting to this song, which, I mean, take that as you will. It's not like a fucking super deep movie, and it's not like they're trying to change your philosophy in life, but I think that there is character development in this movie for sure. They have to, figure out how to. They and their wives, their wives go through this whole character development off screen and come to the conclusion that oh,
that's annoying for them.
This is the happiest we're gonna be. I don't want to go looking off into the future for something that may not exist there. Let's just enjoy the moment and things like that. But I mean, again, it's not like, you can read into all those things a bit, but it's not like it's the deepest thing in the world. But for me, it's a 2 in terms of that. And I don't want to belabor that point because we'll probably talk about it later anyways. But
no, I feel you. I mean, I would say a softer 2, but still sticking with 2. But I figure you guys won, so that's how we're going to split it. So with that, why don't you go on anyway, Stevo, with themes?
All right. So I mean, it's kind of what I just talked
Yeah,
about to an
that's
extent, right? Like, it's the idea that they are figuring out how to navigate their lives as they have this growing family. Their daughters, they see their wives and their daughters like taken away from them like halfway through the movie, and then they have to figure out how to like get back to the place that they were and be happy with their family. And it turns out like kind of living in the moment is the answer to that, which I think was a pretty decent theme. It's and at the end of the movie they figure out that it's not the song that unites the world, it's everybody playing the song together that unites the world, which I thought was kind of sweet. Like, like it's a nice little this series has always been, if nothing else, very optimistic about humanity.
Sure.
And everything like that, and I think that this one is no different, and for me really captured the feel of the original two in terms of that. So that's where I'll leave off. I'll let you guys go.
So I'm sorry, Chris, but I feel that this movie was an indictment of Generation X. A lot of Gen X movies dealt with slackers learning responsibility, kind of the arrested development that both the Gen X and the Boomers felt from, not Boomers, Millennials felt from Boomers, and it's about you gaining your power, and I felt that this was a midlife crisis version of that, except that it's saying, instead of saying that you'll gain your power, saying nah, step back and continue being slackers.
Next generation.
Let the millennials and Zoomers take over. Oh, they'll fix everything. Hopefully that's true. Hopefully that's optimistic.
Do you think it's a good message though, or like?
I think that's
I kind of love that. Yeah.
It took away all responsibility for your generation to solve anything.
From that.
Exactly.
Well, what do you think, Chris, about that?
My generation's done a bang up job so far. What can I tell you? I can kind of see the indictment of it. I'm trying to decide if was that the theme going into this film, or is that what we interpreted?
An emergent property,
Well,
if you will.
I think actually Steve-O pointed out quite well when he was discussing the idea of the daughters there and passing on the torch.
Okay.
Bill and Ted, yeah, they helped, but it was really the daughters, their impetus that crafted that world uniting.
Okay.
Is it an okay for a 1, or like what should I mark?
Okay for 1. I'm really trying not to. The whole thing with the song, I have to say, because I didn't say it before, I'll say it real quick. It kind of like is either a retcon or kind of like nullifies the first movie, or because you see the CD cover, it's, I don't know, there's a continuity thing, but focusing on this film, I'll give you the theme.
Or you could let us do the work, and then your generation can take credit for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what, I'll go last. You guys present your arguments and your scores, and I'll let you know if I agree with it or not.
All right. I mean, I don't like you said, like, yeah, this never is going to be the deepest fucking film in the world, but I think the optimism angle has always been there, as you mentioned, Steve-O, and like they keep it going. Yeah, like, the world unites in music, not just us. It's not just our song. It's everyone playing a song together. So like, yeah, it's a nice sort of maybe sappy-ish a little bit message, but I think it still works. And yeah, like there was a moment where they realized I think they get the USB, like the mixtape, like the actual song, and it says their last names on it, but by which it meant like their daughters were the ones who like put the samples essentially together and like create the song, and they're just sort of there like backing them up. To your point, E, it's like I think it's like fine enough. Again, it's uplifting enough, and it's not bereft of a theme. Like that basically is what they're going for. Like try to like put a positive spin, like make you feel good for like an hour and a half for a little bit. And I think it works well enough because yeah, it's the spirit of it runs throughout, and they're trying to like, again, clearly the enthusiasm, like all the cast and so forth involved was having a good time with this film and trying to like just, again, make you feel a bit lighthearted, make you feel a little bit good for a small moment of your existence. And I think that's a good enough reason to give it a 1. So go ahead, Chris. What your final thought on themes is what?
I gave you my final thought before.
Okay.
I thought you said you're going to wait till everybody's done.
Yeah, that's what I thought you said.
Well, I'd already given it to you. I was going to start.
All right. Well, it's 1s all around either way, so it'll be on you anyway, Chris, for antagonist of Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Oh, let's see. Apparently, it's Generation X is the.
Generation X is always the antagonist. Them are the boomers, you know.
Boomer's fault, but the antagonist is definitely one of those. The antagonist is definitely more thematic. It's facing, is
Having a midlife crisis.
yeah, having a midlife
The
crisis.
ticking clock, right? Of
Yeah.
life, and then
And there's
the actual ticking clock they have.
like,
Jesus, this is a depressing film.
there's a predetermination element to it, and it's just I'm having a really hard time trying to nail down a protagonist, or sorry, an antagonist, because there's no real physical embodiment of it. I mean, Kelly's mom, the supreme leader, I mean, she was trying to do what she was trying to do to save time. It's not like she was working against them. I mean, so maybe time's the antagonist.
It always will be.
I really like the angst of growing older, and then Bill and Ted's Midlife Crisis. It's
That's really what it should have been called. Bill and Ted's excellent midlife crisis.
And, like,
Yeah. Face the Music. It's which is their impending deaths, having achieved nothing in their lives. Yeah, this is a hell of a movie.
well, the best thing is, like, you get to see them get more and more desperate and, like, terrible as the movie goes on, as they go, like, further and further into the future, like, looking for the thing that they did and trying to find it, not realizing it wasn't the thing that they actually did. It was the thing that their daughters did, right? I think it's really fascinating looking at it. I was trying to think earlier what I would have as the antagonist, and I think, like, talking about it and, like, getting both of you guys to give input on it, like, really changed my outlook on it, because I didn't really know exactly what it was, but it's like it's more concrete in my mind now. It's like it is the ticking clock, right? It is that understanding that time is running out, both, like, for them to be good husbands and good fathers, and for them to go save the world with
The
the
same time itself, apparently.
or whatever. And as they get more desperate, they get to see themselves in their, like, ultimate desperation. Like, when they go to the jail and see themselves, like, jacked up and beat the hell out of the evil robot or whatever. Like, there is that moment of, like, holy shit, like, this is what we can, this can happen to us. This can be us in a few years, right?
And they have to reconcile with their bedridden selves who are about to die, and coming to the conclusion that yes, we're all finite. It's only this is actually a much more interesting film than I gave it credit for.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give it antagonist a 1 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna follow along. Like, maybe you guys convince me. Like, at least let me thought about it. It's a little deeper, but I feel like this is always the case. Like, even going back to the original, they're against, like, some sort of, sort of cosmic race, essentially, that they've been. I guess I thought one of you might have said, like, destiny, essentially. Like, like, oh, they're chosen to be, like, the people who unite the world, but it's actually more. It's not as clear cut as that, and this film, like, explores that.
Here's what I would say about that. Like, if you know Bill and Ted, you know that it's such an optimistic series, and B, like, they're just constantly beating destiny, right? Like, destiny can never be a good antagonist for them, because, like, that they're going to overcome. Like, what the real antagonist is, the thing that they can't overcome, which is eventually time is going to run out, right? Like, that's what this whole series has kind of talked about, is, like, time's running out, even if you can travel through time.
Literally time travel.
Like,
Sure. No, I mean, like I said, like, I just think it convinced me. Like, I was kind of wavering on this question, to be honest, like, going into it, but based on how we talked it out, and I think it deserves, like, a decent 1 at least, and certainly not a 0. And I'm going to officially give it a 1. What do you got, Chris?
I'm going to give it a 1. I'm going to say time, because everything we're talking aspects of time.
Fuck time. All right, well, that'll bring us along to protagonist, and that'll be you, E.
I'm not the biggest Bill and Ted fan, and I was initially going to give this a 0 because I don't know how much growth. You made a good growth point earlier, but the fact that we're dealing with two people in the midlife crisis, I actually buy that. All the Gen Xers I know are in that state of mind right now, and you know what? They are a good exemplar of
Representation
the
of
Gen X. So yeah, I might give them one.
I mean, that's a bit more heavy, if you will, than I was going to, but I'm still going to do it because I think Keanu and Alex Winters fell into the roles like pretty easily. Again, like 20, 25 years removed or whatever. And like I think I know we behind the scenes like they've been trying to like get a third Bill and Ted film going. Like it's been like somewhat production hell like here and there throughout. But I think they did a good job, and like yeah, it was nice to see them again and portray their characters in the midlife like crisis era of their lives, and also played against all the ridiculousness of the Bill and Ted stories that have always been there anyways. So yeah, I mean, I'm giving them a solid one. They did a good job, I thought. Like again, like I said, falling back into those characters, and like they were believable. Nothing in this movie I was like, Bill and Ted would never have done that, or like done this way, whatever. So they didn't like break my immersion, if you will, from the known established canon, I suppose.
So our Bill and Ted that we're following still go to prison, right? Like later on,
Like in
their
theory,
years.
like they'll do it later, and then yeah, I don't know. Again,
Oh, I don't know. I feel like maybe there's a schism in the fucking time loop at this point because they actually, well, theoretically, the other Bill and Teds also saved the world, right?
it's listen. It's a fucking Doctor Who timey-wimey ball kind of bullshit thing. Like whatever.
But they don't lose their wives.
Don't think too hard about it.
No, but the thing I'm going to say this is this when it comes like the first movie established the rules. I don't really feel like the rules were really well established in this for time travel.
Fair enough.
However, with that said, I agree with you. I think as these token Gen Xer here, started his music career 5 years ago, after a decade's absence. Yeah, I empathize with Bill and Ted more than I wanted to.
Fair enough, which is enough for a one, it seems. Indeed.
And just my minimal input on this. I dug the way that Keanu and Alex Winter jumped back into these roles. I thought that they did a good job. Yeah, there was like weird delivery, but there's always been weird delivery in these two characters. That's what they're known for, and like I kind of love that about them. And I'm happy to see that they can still kind of embody this like doofy ass like couple that I can't deny that they have good chemistry between the two of them, either in the first movie or this movie. Sure. I like the way that they work together. I think that they're good together, and I gotta give them a one.
By the way, you said don't overthink it. This is what our podcast's about, overthinking.
I understand, but this one's a harder film to try to do that. But we're still powering through. So
Leonard Part 6. I mean,
yes. Well, either way, that's ones all around. So, and they'll bring me to secondary. So I'll have to give credit to Steve-O. Please read me out the actors' names who played their daughters.
Yeah, Samara Weaving was Thea, and Bridget Lundy Payne was Billy.
Okay, yeah. So I will give both of them credit, and like actually, like they're about like they almost split time with Bill and Ted, with Keanu and Alex. Like it's a lot of it is their story. Like they're the ones who they're like we help our dads. We're gonna go back and like find all these again famous historical musical legends and so forth. Like the film spends a decent amount of time focusing on their story, and I think you get like they clearly love their families and want to help out, and they also have the skills, like the musical know-how to like basically get all the samples and put it together. So like I thought they did a good job like with what the script and the film gave them to work with. And yeah, like one of you said, like yes, I agree that the historical figures like weren't as focused on, like you don't get like the Socrates and the the kid thing that you would have like you did earlier. So like it does skim over like yeah, they grab Hendrix and have like 3 lines with him, and then he's just there. And they grab Mozart or Beethoven the first one, then Mozart here, and and all the other like musical acts. Actually, Kid Cudi might be my favorite like guest musical, because he just starts lecturing them about the nature of quantum physics and like what's happening with how they're trying to save time in the world. And like so I think it all like worked well enough, but mostly for the daughters. I think even like their princess wives, they were fine, they were there. but like they didn't have much to do. Like you said, Evo, it was kind of actually not bad that their story essentially was off screen.
They were shipped on a.
They were shipped on a fucking phone booth. Yeah, exactly. But like the plot, like took that into account. Like they mentioned why that was going to happen. Like they show up like here and there in the background. And I guess Ted's father is like the original actor. I don't even know his name, but he was the same guy from the original.
Outlander Jr.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, I think it's enough for me for a 1, but a lot of credit largely is due to the daughters. So good, Chris.
I'm just going to mention one character. Is Kelly Kristen Shaw?
Yes, she was very good too.
I found out a bit of trivia about that, and I didn't want to forget to tell you this.
Right.
The character was named after George Carlin's daughter was named Kelly. So
That's cool.
Character after her. So it is Rufus's namesake in a
It's a loving tribute to Carlin. Yeah.
I thought she was great. I thought
Yeah, she was good. You're right.
I have to say, like their daughters, I like the actresses and I like their characters, but I think Billy whoever played Billy kind of overdid a little bit of the Keanu impression. But yeah, but other than that, I thought I gave my impression on the musical figures. I just wanted to tell the Kelly story, so I'll give it a 1 because Kelly.
Yeah, I thought that they did a very good job. I also want to mention William Sadler as Death.
Yes, they brought him in.
Good job. And Anthony Kerrigan as Dennis Caleb McCoy I thought was hilarious.
He was okay. Like he was fine. He probably my least. Like I know that it's an enjoyable like part, like what they had him do, but he was probably like the least entertaining secondary character to me. Although he was still fine, relatively.
I think the daughters did a good job. I was just going to get out of the way. But the robot was the most annoying thing I've seen in a very, very long time. The fact that they underused a lot of the historical figures, like, I don't know, it just, the bright spots of the secondary characters are outweighed by, because again, I feel like they added historical figures in here because the first one did, but didn't really have I don't know. It didn't gel with me, so I'm probably gonna give this a 0.
Okay,
I do agree. I wish they had gone more into the historical figures. I think that they were very underutilized. But like you said, Scott, I'm gonna give credit for Kid Cudi. I thought that he was funny and like well used. I did like the robot, and I thought that it was interesting to see like Death's turn like in between movies, and I like the daughters, so I'm gonna give it a 1.
Look for 1. Chris, where are you coming down exactly?
I agree with you.
1.
I mean, that should have been a 1-2 joke max. I was teetering on this because I felt strong, but I am going to say I thought it was really cool. I mean, I do like Kristen Shaw always, and she was one of my favorite parts of the movie, actually. Narratively, her character did serve a purpose, and I have to admit, that story I thought was a really like cool attribute. So throw sentimentality, whatever in it, but it kind of pushed from a 0 to a soft 1.
Okay, that's fair. Very good. All right, so let's move on to dialogue. That's you, Steve-O. Excellent, dude.
This is an interesting one. I don't know if I can give any Bill and Ted movie good dialogue. I like the scripts, but I'm not sure that it's like a ploutable dialogue, right? So I think I'm probably gonna give this a 0, but let me see what you guys have to say.
All right, I kind of agree. Like as much as I admitted, I love the series and love the characters, and even like we quote it to this day here and there, but it's never been like, all right, it's like knockoff Mel Brooks shit, like at best. So like that can be funny, but the original like she's a total bonehead. Like again, you can quote that in here and there and like throughout, but it's not like the standout point. It is, in fact, to me, probably the weakest part of these films. Even if like they have their own cadence, yes, they have their own little vernacular, really, but the dialogue is not the focal point and never has been of it. In fact, like the film even sometimes goes far enough to mock the characters for speaking the way they speak. Like it's sort of a joke, and it's not, right? If that makes sense. But yeah, I wrote down 0 for my score on the outset of this question. Not that it sucks. It's just that it's okay what you expect from these, again, sort of dopey, somewhat stoner characters and all the people around them. So like, yeah, it goes along, but even the most quotable stuff, in fact, I think is from the first movie, and I don't think there's any quotes I remember from this one. So I think that's the most damning point.
I was actually going to challenge you to that. Basically, like what not in reference to the original 2 movies
No.
is quotable.
Yeah,
in this.
I agree. So like, I think that's my reasoning for giving it like as much nostalgia and heart I have for these films. This is the one I think I'm going to hold the line and be like, it's just not enough credit there. So,
excuse me. I probably would give the original Bill and Ted a 1 because there was a lot of it was clever dialogue, a lot of clever, as Scott said before, visual gags with regard to characters. This film, however, I agree with you 100%. There's nothing that's memorable that's not like a cut and paste from one of the first 2 movies. Yeah, 0.
what do you think, Steve-O?
I was trying to think of like, I mean, the most memorable stuff is, and I don't know if I could even do a direct quote, but like the most memorable stuff to me is like Kid Cudi, and then the daughters and their like quips, which really reminded me of Bill and Ted, like the original, like randomly coming up with a big word to like describe a situation, right, where you didn't expect it, right? Like that was more of where I felt like the original came in, but to that point, I don't think there's anything that's really gonna drive me over a 0 into a 1 territory. So
Actually, Kid Cudi's dialogue was really good.
Yeah.
But
It doesn't outweigh like sort of not the blandness, but like just it's just there. Like again, like
that's the joke that landed the most for me.
no.
But yeah, you're probably not the. I can't give a 1
Yeah,
for
like I said,
that. His 5 minutes of screen time.
I mean, I sort of involved that into secondary credit. So like, while his dialogue was pretty good for sure, possibly the best, it's just not enough to outweigh everything else that was in the film. So looks like we're going with 0s on that one. That'll bring us to style with you, Chris.
I hated the way this film was in. I mean, I really did. There were certain parts where I felt like I was watching a clip show. Like the pacing in this film was just awful. And I think that's because they tried to pack so much stuff in a shorter time. Honestly, I like boring movies. I would have been so much happier as if, you know what, if they really, set the rules, if they really developed the characters, if I didn't feel like every scene was like, they felt like they took their time with the scenes with Bill and Ted's. But the daughters, I just remember their body actions. I don't remember a word either one of them said. I just felt like, when it wasn't Bill and Ted, it was a clip show. So I'm giving it a big 0.
All right, okay. Got you.
I mean, I can see that. I'm not sure there's anything in here. I didn't hate the style of this movie, but I'm not sure there's anything in here that like really is calling to me to give it a 1, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna.
Even that Kumbaya come together
Fair enough.
looked like a cola commercial. So
Very fittingly, this is the greatest hits CD of Bill and Ted 1 and 2,
I like that.
but without the craftsmanship that goes into an album. It's just the hits one after another. There's none of that original flow between the songs. And I think, Chris, you actually said a lot of what I had in my mind. So thank you.
Real quick, I also want to point out like a lot of the awesome practical effects of the first 2 movies went by the wayside in this one for CGI.
Didn't always work.
Which didn't look as good. I didn't like it as much for that. Like I appreciated the practical effects in Excellent Adventure and especially in Bogus Journey. And it just didn't have that same feel to it in this one. So
Yeah, I kind of feel you guys on all fronts. Like, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's really not stand out. And I think some of the stuff, as you mentioned, from the originals, again, from 1989 and 1992 or 3, holds up possibly better than what was here. So, like, again, it's not like it was, like, a total mess of a film, but I think it's one of the more weaker parts of it, and I don't think it's enough for me even, again, But even my nostalgia, like I said, admittedly, isn't enough here to let me give it a 1. So I'm gonna give it a 0. Maybe softer, but still 0. All right, and with that, bring it on home. E, do you recommend Bill and Ted Face the Music?
If you're a fan of Bill and Ted, sure. If you're not a fan of Bill and Ted or you haven't seen any of them, no. And I feel that latter group outweighs the former group. So I'm going to probably give a 0 on recommendation.
Alrighty, what do you guys think?
I love the first movie. Was ambivalent about the second one. I didn't really care about seeing. I didn't like. I wasn't excited to see this film.
Okay.
So I would say, like, for me, it'd be like Bill and Ted's 1 and 2, and this would be a very Sci-Fi Channel original movie of the week. What if Bill and Ted's What If Adventure? I'm giving.
What if they were middle aged?
I really can't recommend this. I won't.
Okay. What do you think, Sivo?
Yeah, I am gonna recommend it. I think that it's a fun follow-up. I think that it's a, if we're looking at trilogies of the era that this came out, I think that this is a better third movie than Back to the Future 3.
Okay.
But I know, weird pull. But yeah, no, I actually had fun watching this movie. I've seen it twice now. And I really enjoyed it. It's got flaws. It's not perfect, but I think that it's well worth a watch, especially if you're a fan of Bill and Ted, the original 2. So I would say check it out.
Yeah, I mean, here's where I am going to let my bias bleed in a little bit. But certainly, as E said, of course, if you're a fan of the original, like, you're going to probably see this film, like, no question, you might as well. And if you haven't, you'll be a little lost. But I think you might enjoy it either way. Or maybe if you've seen only one of the first 2, it still might make sense. And either way, it's like kind of a fine romp. Like, it's inoffensive. It's just there, hour and a half, hour and 35 minutes or whatever. So, like, it's fine time. Yeah, it's not must see. Like, certainly you can skip it. I don't know what to say about that. But I think I'm gonna officially give it an okay, solid 1. You might as well, if you're a previous fan, or if you're just like, hey, I got nothing to do for an hour and a half, maybe this will be a fun little movie to watch, and it generally is, I would say so. Anything else? Any other thoughts on recommend before I break it down?
No.
All right, so here we go. Steve-O and I, of course, the original Bill and Ted's have given it 7s. Chris gave it a 5, and E gave it a 4, giving a 5.75 overall, which is like probably about right, like slightly above average. Maybe like a little better. I would rate it like, outside of this, but again, it's, what you're getting into for the most part, and especially if you already have a history, like we said. And I think it delivers what you want if that is what you're looking for. So, no more, no less, really.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. So I think that'll do it. Let's hop in our fucking time machine right now. Get out of here. I've been Scott Thurlow, here with Stephen Amosi.
Catch you later, podcast dudes.
And Chris Morgan.
We're all just dust in the wind, dudes.
Dust Wind Dude. And grumpy old Rufus, Jonathan Eamonser.
Going through my own midlife crisis right now.
Uh-huh. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. Peace.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Or mods?